We will rock you. Yeah. Sweat Equity Podcast, Stream Show, #1 business comedy podcast in the world. And what? You don't have a soundboard anymore?
I do.
We got.
Were you gonna say something?
We've got Ethan Song from RareCircles.com, former founder, owner of Franken Oak. 300 employees, man.
A lot of people.
Just drop that one. We talk a lot about Web3. And
Still don't get it.
It's a little over our heads, but, you know, that's why you listen to us on iTunes, Apple Podcasts,
What do you do with cryptocurrency?
Spotify, Google Play, Amazon Podcasts. What else are we on? Samsung, all that stuff. You want to be our BFFs? Subscribe to the pod, rate us 5-star, share this show with a friend. This episode is sponsored by Squarespace. Create a customizable website or online store with all-in-one solution from Squarespace without having to do any coding, baby.
Yeah.
You don't have to do all those third-party plugins
But
from.
you can.
You can, but you don't have to make your site optimized for WordPress. Yeah, we're talking about you, WordPress. Fuck you, dude.
Whoa.
Sorry.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Fucking thing sucks. Jeez.
Yeah, I don't like WordPress.
Metro's unshareable.
Automatically index your website to Google, Bing, Yahoo, Lycos, Netscape, all the goodies. And, no templates now. You got Fluid Engine. You can design it in a grid format. Get started today with the free trial with the promo code in this episode description. Hooks us up, hooks you up, and, make yourself feel good.
Yeah, I already do.
All right, let's get it going with Ethan's Song of Rare Circles. Hotty toddy!
Sweat equity. Sweat equity. Sweat equity. Sweat equity.
You are listening to the Sweat Equity Podcast.
Sweat equity.
Ethan, so you can hear us? We're all good?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Well, we didn't know if you're on Mars. What is that? Where are you? The background.
What planet are you on, sir?
Yeah, is that Titan from Avengers?
I'm not sure exactly what planet I'm on, actually, but I like wherever I am, I like it.
It looks very Rick and Morty-esque behind you.
Yeah.
So Ethan Song, why don't you give the audience your plugs, where to find you, how to contact, call to action, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, sure. I mean, if you guys are interested in learning more about, what I'm working on, or some of my content, you can find me on Twitter at Mr. Ethan Song. That's probably the easiest way.
All right, and you have two brands, I understand. Am I correct? Here we had a booking snafu yesterday.
Well,
That was so we have to apologize at the front of this episode because I don't know why we got our wires crossed, but we Zoom just added a passcode onto the meeting for some reason.
and then we put our phones on Do Not Disturb because we're pros.
Yep.
And didn't see any emails come through. So, sorry.
Right.
No
worries at all.
Where are you videoing in from?
I'm in Canada right now. I'm actually out west near Calgary. In Canada.
Okay. Calgary is all I know about Calgary is the 2004 Stanley
Right,
Cups.
the Lightning beat the Flames.
Yeah, but I found out that was at a point in time. I think I was 19. We were 19 years old or something like that.
Older.
Yeah, something like that. And it was, I didn't realize it was like oil-ish, cowboy, kind of old school. It felt like Texans almost that were hockey fans. Is that kind of an apt description?
I mean, I think if you were to compare, from a province to state perspective, you would say that, Alberta, which is a province, is similar to Texas in many different ways, from the fact that, it's has more energy. Like that's where all of the tar sands are in Canada. I actually find that Calgary is starting to be a little bit like Austin, where there's also tech. It's this weird mix of like techs, cowboys, and also oil and gas.
So blue city, kind of in a red province, if you will. That's how you kind of compare Austin or Nashville. Tampa is a little bit like that in Florida.
Is that where you're from, Ethan?
Well, I was originally born in China, and I've also lived in both Montreal and Vancouver. So I'm not from here, but I'm here currently.
Canadian at heart, though.
Yeah, I'm mostly Canadian. Yeah.
All right.
I've been to Montreal and Vancouver. Both are cool cities. Montreal, not a fan of me, but that's fine.
Yeah, I can imagine you walking in there looking like that.
Well, I look like I
Who does this guy
look.
think he is? Get a parka.
They're like, what's this frat guy from the United States? We're literally walking around with a football, throwing it with like 10 white guys. So, bachelor party nonetheless. But I did see a stripper take ice, put it in her hoo-ha, and spit it out as water. And that was kind of amazing. So Canada's always got a...
So there goes our clean.
What?
We make it 3.5 minutes.
What? That's still
before
clean.
we
I haven't
made it
cussed.
unshareable.
That's
You know what we're
shareable.
talking about. It's not shareable.
What do you? We don't have any limits on this show.
I know, but maybe we should.
Maybe Ethan will agree with us. Yeah, business talk. You've heard some of the most filthy things in the professional world
Sure.
behind closed doors. I mean,
Yep.
that's why we kind of like this podcast, because it's like, let's have some real talk. But I don't like the guys that are aggressively disgusting. Like right when you meet them,
Yeah,
in a
sure.
business meeting, they're like, "You see that secretary
Yeah.
out there?" And you're like,
Whoa.
"Oh, bro, I'm not on your team."
Yep.
All right.
This is definitely an interesting way to open this episode.
Yeah. HR. What do you know about HR?
Let's
Ethan?
let's start with the question we ask everybody that comes on the first time. What advice would you give your 13-year-old self?
I would say that's a very good question. 13 is an interesting choice of age also.
Yep, it's on purpose.
I think when I was young, I always wanted to have like a plan, like a master plan or a roadmap. And I realized over time that those don't exist. So I would say like just not worry about the perfect plan and just kind of follow your instinct and do what you love. I think it's kind of corny, to be honest. Now I listen to myself saying it, but it's the truth. In the sense that you just don't know where life is going to give you. And so not worrying about having a plan and just going for it, I think would probably be my best advice.
Were you a perfectionist growing up? And did that result in like you almost getting in your own way kind of thing?
Yeah, I was definitely a perfectionist in the sense that, my dad had a PhD in physics. We were like, first generation immigrants. So I definitely followed a little bit in that stereotypical, Asian kind of like high expectations on like what I thought I could do. But I realized over time that no one cares. Like no one cares about what you are doing with your life. And therefore, you should just focus on finding stuff that, that you're into, whether that's the smallest thing like snowboarding or something more meaningful. And so, yeah, I definitely felt that pressure when I was growing up. But I think over time I realized that, it kind of doesn't matter. And like, understanding that it doesn't matter is actually like a good thing because it frees you, to do whatever you want.
I think Ethan finally figured out what I would say to my 13-year-old self. No one cares.
Yeah.
That's all I would say.
Yeah.
Nobody cares.
Yeah.
They're thinking about themselves.
Right. Yeah. I've heard that kind of adage a lot lately for some reason. It's just like you think everybody's thinking about you and they're all thinking about themselves first.
Exactly.
If anything, you might be on the top 20 maybe, but maybe.
Yeah. Even when you're having a tough conversation.
I agree. Because if you talk to someone who's like, later in life, right, like someone's like 70 or whatever on their deathbed, or even like, I feel like they'll never talk about like how other people like thought about them as being something they care about at that point in life. And I feel like the younger you are, the more you care about what other people think. And as you get older, you just realize less and less. And you almost want to just jump to that like deathbed where you just don't give, don't care about what other people think.
Yeah, there's a reason.
It's true freedom.
Yeah, older people are always saying crazy stuff. Just whatever. They say what's on their mind because they realize
Who gives a shit?
nobody cares. Well, like, what's it going to happen?
Yeah, I got ahead of that.
Yeah.
I've just been saying crazy shit for decades now.
Yeah, exactly. Just get used to it.
So were you hitting the pow, the nar? Are you getting out on the snowboard and not focusing on figuring out the path, or do you want to be a pro snowboarder? What was the plight? How did we get to here?
Yeah, I mean, I was at that time I was in Montreal and I wanted to kind of pursue more of an artistic career. So I moved to Vancouver. I went to basically art school, and then I wanted to effectively, become a film director or something, in that space. And then what's interesting is that like I quickly realized that I was more interested in like technology, and so maybe that's not that rebellious, but at that point in time, that's actually what I cared about, and so I ended up switching from that into like learning more about engineering, and but I feel that this sort of combination of technology and like storytelling has been sort of like the through line in most of the things I've been involved in. So I did that. I held on to a real job for about 2 years after college, and then basically kind of went out and like started the more entrepreneurial journey. So that's kind of how I got started. And like, I mean, if I just skip ahead, basically,
Yeah.
I started a company. I started a few different companies. One, a company that's I guess is somewhat known. It's called a company called Frank and Oak. Was a fairly large e-commerce company based out in Canada.
I
grew
see that.
a company
I see that Shopify
to-
store. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, we grew a company to about 300 employees.
Woo!
Over 30 stores basically. So it's a fairly large company. And then, I exited, left the company a few years ago, and then after that, I was doing a mix of like just helping others, get started, and also doing some investment. And then, I kind of wanted to get back in the driver's seat in terms of building companies, and I started my current company about a year ago, which is really focused on supercharging communities. And so that's kind of like the last 10 years of my life, how I got to where I am today.
Is that Rare Circles or is that a different entity?
Yeah, it's Red Circles, exactly.
So what we don't have a lot of Web3 people come on here. Can you explain what Web3 is in a very dumb way?
Like we're five. Not a smart five either.
I see a lot of people promoting it. I see, it seems to be the next CrossFit thing on LinkedIn.
I see NFTs on that. That's about all I can read. But
Yeah, can you talk to our audience, pretty much us, like we're five?
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people don't want to ask these questions. Everybody wants to assume they know what it is because you see so much of it starting to pound you on social.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I see a lot of people where like, you hear these buzzwords and you just start using them themselves until you realize you actually don't know what it actually means.
Right.
I think Web3 is a very broad word. So I'm not sure. I think if you'd ask like 10 people, they all have different definitions. But, it really comes from the aspect of like Web 1, Web 2.0, and then Web 3. So Web 1 being like, the early kind of, and it kind of goes in 10-year phases, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of Web 1 being like, simply you basically get to read, meaning like, you get to read content, you get to like use Google search, you get to buy on Amazon, which is basically Web 1. So it's a very centralized, perspective. Web 2.0, which is I think what most people understand and live in, obviously social media was a big part of that. But also the idea of like blogging, the idea of like being a creator, of making money on YouTube. You guys, very Web 2.
Thank you.
Yeah. Nice.
I think
all of that is like, and that is really around like, user generated content, in a broader sense of things. That's what Web 2.0 was. And this new era of Web 3 is around, the idea of like ownership. And that's really what the broad term is. Now, what does that include? And typically, I would say Web3 includes everything that's blockchain related. Now, the big question I guess you guys could ask is like, okay, is Web3 and crypto the same thing?
Well, crypto's already I'll just go from Bitcoin because that's the easiest kind of example to teach. Is like it's decentralized. It's a decentralized currency, right? So it can't be owned by any one entity, essentially, right? And where it gets into where my depth gets out of range is when someone's like, well, isn't like a mathematical kind of proposition that there's no solve for it. And that's how it stays decentralized almost. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's doing some kind of math. I don't know if they saw it. Ethan probably knows.
I mean, the simplest way of thinking about it, is the fact that like crypto comes from cryptocurrencies, right? So Bitcoin being obviously the most well-known one and the first one really relates to currencies, right? And currencies being like US dollars or Bitcoin, something you can trade, something that has monetary value. And I think the piece that people misunderstand is that the cryptocurrency is built on top of the blockchain, which is the technology. And so if you want to think about what Web3 is basically applying blockchain technology to things outside of finance. And so that's why like you hear about, collectibles, right? So like you talked about NFTs in the beginning being Web3 because collectibles are more about IP. Now, people are talking about using Web3 for ticketing. So in that case, it's applying that technology to access, like digital access. And so I think why a lot of people are excited about this technology is basically the application of Web3 or a blockchain technology to other purposes other than financial purposes. So the way I see it, people think that it's the new internet. I see it more as like an evolution of what we have today. Kind of like how when mobile, came about, when the iPhone came about in, I think it was 09 or 2010, and it kind of changed the way we use the internet. But we were still kind of doing the same stuff, right? Ordering stuff, getting food delivery, getting like, Uber. But it was a revolution because it changed the way people consume the internet. And I think Web3 has the potential to do that. But, I would say we're still in the early innings of that transformation.
Yeah, I mean, so I was consulting with a guy who wanted to have a gym that was like, it was very ambitious. He called me up. He was like, "Can you consult for this? I have this gym idea is in Austin where it would be kind of Web3 based, where the people that invest in it were the shareholders." And I was like, this doesn't sound like anything new to me. But he had his own kind of currency to go with it. And I was like, I think you're getting over your skis and getting out too far. I think.
Right. Are you starting a gym or making your own currency?
It was both. And I go.
And we're not talking like Dave and Buster's currency.
Well, I go, look, you want me to help you with the marketing side of it? I need to explain the message. I don't really know how to explain this if you can't explain it to me. And I'll be your Cyrano to your crowd of sorts, but like, I still don't get what this is, right? Because you have Cyrano. Remember the guy with the big nose tells the other guy so he could hit on the chick in the balcony? You know what I'm talking about. Ethan knows what I'm talking about. Eric's shaking his head. He's not very cultured. He's just sad about Dave and Buster's, the guy. Buster.
Are we going to Dave and Buster's or not?
Buster killed himself, dude. Yeah.
I mean, I like Dave and Buster's, but I agree on your point, actually. I think you make a really good point. I feel like we're still in the stage where there's a lot of hobbyists are like doing the technology just for the technology, and like it doesn't serve a real purpose.
It felt very late '90s .com era, where you have all these shit. Like it was almost the exact same parallel with like that, where all these .coms went bust because they go, here's all the shares of it, and you guys are investors. You have private equity in this, and you can and then they IPO, and then they would bust. Pets.com is always the go-to example on that. But like, it's funny how this stuff is cyclical in a very short, truncated kind of historical timeline. There's no question, but
no, it seems like it's an authentication, like is really the best thing that it's bringing to the table.
I think the way you have to see it, right, is that I think the Web3 itself is not the purpose. Right, so the blockchain that does nothing on its own, like that is not the utility, right? So in the sense that like an internet connection without great content or payments or like whatever you could do on it does not do anything. So I think we're still in that phase. I would say like if you were to compare it to .com, we're actually earlier in .com. I'd say we're probably in 96, 97.
Right.
And in terms of just adoption curve, so I think we're still very early. Now the counter argument I would say is that if the technology gets adopted and if it becomes extremely useful, well, there's opportunities for people to build companies of the size of Amazon and Google in this stage. So I think that's why there's a lot of interest in the space. But I tend to agree with you that as an entrepreneur in the space, I think part of the problem is that people are too focused on like just making money, like monetization, right? And then it becomes like a giant casino. And I don't think that's a good behavior because you're not adding value to real users. And you're kind of like playing to the worst of people's, kind of like values versus like actually creating real value. And so I tend to agree with some of the assessment you have. But the only caveat I would make is that I do think the technology is important. I think we're early.
So what are the solutions? Like you started off in the episode explaining this as kind of developing communities. I may be paraphrasing, but to that point,
I remember that word.
how does Rare Circles help communities kind of evolve? Like, let's say we want to get a community for our podcast, which I've been putting off for 5 years. And I'm like, I should start a Facebook group, just throw everybody in there. And then I go back and forth and I hem and haw. I'm like, well, we should have a Slack group really that, what if they could mirror each other if we're just putting a daily post in there or something like that. And then I overthink it and then I don't do it.
And the solution is nothing. Nothing.
We want to add value to the show as a supplemental thing to this show to create kind of engagement, because what we're lacking on this show is we have good listenership. We don't have like any.
But we talk about shooting stuff out of our hoo-haws all the time, and then we can't share it with people, and
Hey, we're not the number one business comedy podcast for just business. Okay, sometimes you got to talk about the weird fringy kind of thing.
Yeah, it's very fringe. Very cool.
Yeah, so I would say, the simple way to answer your question is that, we offer a product that's basically like a community portal, that has some features that like a Slack or a Facebook group would have. The nuance is that you can add a layer of NFTs, and you can do two things with the NFTs. One, the user that has NFTs, so you could gate basically the content that's behind, and you can have different tiers of access for a variety of different users. You could reward some of your best users with freebies, or you could, make people pay, like an annual subscription to get those access to your content. Within that portal, you guys can basically host content, or you could, reward your users for being engaged users. So that's kind of like at a very high level, the product that we offer is. Now, you may say, what is the difference between that and using Facebook group or Slack? I would say the answer is there's two different set of answers. I think as it relates to Facebook, I think what we're seeing is definitely a trend towards people wanting to have private communities versus like sitting on these big platforms where they don't control the algorithms. People feel like they're being taken advantage in terms of data. So that's one. But the second piece, I think, is really around the fact that, Slack and subscription models work in a lot of instances, but they don't work in terms of rewarding your best users or your best listeners. And so the Web3 component, to me, I think it adds a touch of like loyalty, reward, and retention, which I think is new to this space. But I do think that like the caveat there is it's an enhanced experience, but your community is still your community. You know what I mean? Like you guys have built this amazing community, and it's still your community. And with this enhanced experience, hopefully, what can happen? They can be more engaged. They can feel more rewarded. You guys can maybe identify super fans, right? That are like key to your community. Those are things that I think you can't do right now without the Web3 technology. So that's sort of how our product and our mindset comes into play.
So kind of like a Twitch system of having your own kind of reward kind
system.
Of I don't know how to explain it really. I have to find a dumb guy metaphor for everything.
Well, I don't know if you guys have been on Reddit, and Reddit now has a layer of Web3 to the system, but
interesting.
The rewards points, the avatars, like all of that are effectively now core to the Reddit ecosystem, and it's basically like community incentives. That if I were to shorten it, I feel like that's the way I would describe it. Now,
Eric just goes on Reddit for this QAnon kind of group stuff. That's that's what he loves. Well, look, you guys are getting mobilized.
Wearing this shirt, and I'm not allowed to.
Dude, we're 2 days away from y'all's day, dude.
They have meetings.
It's January 6th in a couple days, man.
Don't say that. Don't say that.
What you guys?
That's on the web now. Web3.
You were talking to me offline about mobilizing.
Oh my god!
And I don't know who Q is.
Just don't do political. You can talk about hemorrhoids or whatever. Don't say political anything.
I got Ethan to
For
laugh.
the record, I feel like I should say that he's full of shit. I don't know if it's not clear.
Said like a true conspiracy guy. Ethan, I'm sorry I cut you off. Eric,
Ethan's off. Ethan's off the line. He's not even here.
We got him to laugh for a half second. He was like, "Is this? Why did I do this show?"
I will say I'm amazed how often you'll ask a question and you'll talk for 3 minutes. We'll have a back and forth, a whole deal, and the guests they remember the question. It blows my mind. Ethan was answering a question that happened 3 minutes ago, and I was like, "Oh, that's right. There was a question in there."
Ethan, go on. Sorry.
Do we have a question?
I don't know. Yeah, what is the question?
You just looked at us like a marriage counselor for 2 minutes.
This is never going to work.
I guess my thing is, you were talking about Reddit and how they've started infusing this. If we're okay, let's go this way. Let's go back to the example for anybody listening that wants to get a community started. I see the get started button on rarecircles.com. How would I start getting the word out to use this platform? How does one get going?
Yeah, I mean, the main thing for us is that like our product is not a distribution product, meaning like, because what we're seeing is that most people are building their communities on Twitter, right, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. And so there's already all these great distribution products. Really our products, what you can use it for is effectively invite your users, whichever platform you're on, right, to join. You can either offer free access or you can, have more of a gated and have them pay. If you want to use that as a monetization for your content, and then effectively use a platform to engage in. I would say that's the simplest way for you to do that. And so you just go on a website and basically get started.
Blows my mind how digital stuff, I mean, not really when you think about it, but like if you play a game, like you were making fun of me yesterday for playing Words with Friends.
Yeah,
and they give you whatever.
Bullshit Scrabble. Yeah.
You still lost at regular Scrabble yesterday.
I'm 3-1 against you, homie.
Is it 3? Yeah, and those were very close games. I destroyed you yesterday.
Dude, I'll fuck you up in Scrabble.
Okay,
we're going to play right after
over.
this. All right,
fine.
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
Okay.
We'll talk about it. I lost
You're
my
a triple word bitch.
Oh, the way that people still, like, they know that you're just getting a little coin on a thing that means nothing, yet there's value to it to some people, and it's...
Well, I think we're in an age where tangible doesn't feel... If it's intangible, it doesn't feel real, right?
But I don't know. I feel like it doesn't have to be anymore. Is your money tangible? How
I'm
often
saying,
do you carry cash?
This is how our parents probably felt about the gold standard, right? So it's like...
Right.
You go off of something, they're like, well, gold's never going away. And you're like, wow.
It's about an agreement where, we all agree that this paper's worth money. And, if you give it to somebody else, they agree with the same thing. And it's the same with, all that digital stuff. If everybody in your community agrees, hey, this is valuable, guess what? It's valuable. It just blows my mind.
Yeah. The NFT world's interesting. I don't know how you keep it unique when you have something that's intangible like that. But I'm sure that's part of the blockchain technology that's the backing of all of that. Is that kind of fair to say?
Well, that's why I think all the stuff you guys are talking about are really relevant to cryptocurrencies, where in that case, it's really like supply and demand. If there's demand for it, it's valuable. If there's no demand for it, then it's worth nothing. And I tend to agree for that. I'm to be honest, not that knowledgeable on the finance and DeFi side because our focus is really on community. What I would say is that when people think about crypto, there's really two things they need to know. Is that there is the currencies, but there's also the technology. And I think what we're going to see in the next 3 to 5 years is I think the technology is going to really change the way people consume the internet. And they may not even know it. They may not even realize that it's behind the scenes. Whereas I do think that the crypto itself, I think in some instances has value, but it's going to stay probably more niche, right? Like you said, for community people that are true believers that are using it.
Where do you see sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead, yeah.
Well, I was going to ask where you think the blockchain technology is going to be used that maybe we're not thinking about, like somewhere. I don't know. I think of driver's licenses because, like, I know that like certain states you can have your license on your phone now.
Yeah.
Would that apply, Ethan? I don't know.
I mean that applies. I mean
Ethan.
there were discussions, during COVID where some people say maybe we can use blockchain to validate the vaccine passports, right? That some governments were issuing.
Boo.
So I do think that we're going to see basically some companies, governments. I think the main thing that you're going to see, and actually to your point that you mentioned, is I do think we're going to see a trend, likely around tokenizing real world assets.
Right.
Right. Meaning like you and I can trade something, but what we're trading is a right to something in the real world, and that real world could be a pair of Jordan sneakers, or it could be a US dollar, or it could be your
any other
license.
time I'd have Jordans.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, like my thing with what you're doing though, it seems like you're separating the cryptocurrency with what the community aspect of this is. But if there is a reward system that has its own kind of casino-like coins or rewards or incentives, isn't that kind of just a side move from cryptocurrency, or is that really dumb? You know what I'm saying?
No, I know exactly what you mean.
Like, isn't it just another form? Like, if I go to the casino, I got to go get chips. That's the way they do it there.
Right.
You can't play unless you have the chips. Now, I guess the way your communities might be built off of is you can join for free. It's probably like a freemium thing. Like, you're giving away as the community admin, giving away maybe rewards instead of them having to buy into the community. Or is that part of the aspect of the users of the community where they go, hey, I want to put something into this to get something out? For instance, we were on Twitch for a local radio guy, kind of like he was huge in the 90s. And then we didn't know he was still big, Bubba the Love Sponge. But we went on a show to get made fun of for an hour, and we didn't realize how big his community was on Twitch. And he has all these different incentives to be like almost like political campaign thing, where you could be the top Bubba lover of whatever it is. And then they had all these coins that if you threw coins into the chat while it's live, they would say your name on air and things of that nature. They had to buy that subscription. Is that kind of, can you set something up like that? Or is it like, hey, we start a group and we're just going to give away kind of like whatever our
Could be content too.
Casino coins are.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be coins. It can be
but I'm saying just something.
Digital something.
I didn't want to use currency, and I can't think of another word.
Right.
Points.
Well, I only use the word rewards.
Okay.
And so at no point did I talk about cryptocurrencies or points. So I feel like you're like a reward can be anything.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I would say that like from that perspective, like we're building tools so that our users can reward their members with physical goods like T-shirts, and but it could also reward their members with access to events like special meetups. Now, of course, like anyone that issues NFTs or tokens, could those have value and become speculative? I would say it really depends on the community, and yes, it's a possibility, but it depends on the users and the community themselves. And so in that case, it's not the code that does it; it's the users. And in some instances, the speculation makes sense. I mean, the public market is based on speculation, and it does make sense, and it's part of the American, industrial machine. Yeah. And so I think in some cases it makes sense, and in some cases it doesn't make sense. And I think from that perspective, really the power is in the hands of the creators, guys like you, to decide what you want to do with it. But I would say that the reason why I'm speaking to the technology is because there is technology. Like I'll give you an example. There's a new trend towards non-transferable tokens, which means when you get the reward, you can't transfer it to someone else. And in that case, well, if you can't transfer it to someone else, you can't speculate. So
guess what? It's worth zero.
Why? Because you can't transfer it.
Yeah.
You couldn't give it to them. So therefore, it's only valuable to you. And so I think what we're going to see, guys, is that the space still feels like very experimental. And over time, we're going to see different verticals of content and technology and values create. Because, just like the internet, you could use the internet for gambling or you could use the internet for learning. And I think... And there's no judgment from me or from whoever as to what's better. I think it's just different applications, right? As to like whatever you want to do. And I think we're going to see the same thing in the blockchain space. But I do think that it's going to take time. Is it 2 years, is it 5 years, or 10 years? I think only time will tell.
Well, if anybody's interested, then go to rarecircles.com and request access to check it out. Revenue and engagement solutions for Web3. Thanks for coming on, Ethan. Appreciate you rescheduling so quickly from our
no worries at all.
And best of luck, buddy.
All right. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Great show. Bye-bye.